Welcome to episode 54 of What a Civilization Started Over. By the way, you can probably see that I'm recording this differently because you can't see these boxes. So, before you leave the video, tell me, do you like it without the boxes or with the boxes? Anyway, let's go a recap of what happened in the last video, such as the Italians go to war with the Swiss. We saw the Turks go to war with the Demand country and take their coast on the Persian Gulf. There we go, I remembered it. We saw a war in Japan where the Red Japanese took back their own island in the south. And there was another smallish event. There was some colonization in this area. The Germans filled in this stuff. We saw some more expansion down here in America. I know there was another event, and that's kind of a pertinent one for today's episode. But I feel like there was a fourth war, wasn't there? Oh yeah, there was this one right here, where the greyish country got annexed into the Orange country. The other major event was the beginning of the 7 Years' War, which is what we're going to be covering in today's episode. It's kind of like World War Zero. I don't know. That's what the 7 Years' War was like in real life. So yeah, let's start that in a second. Because first off, I'm going to do power rankings, and power rankings are updated for this episode. A special edition of power rankings. I've got the top 20. So that's pretty cool. I don't want to go through all this, but I probably will. Top 10, nothing really changed except for the fact that England moved from 7th all the way to 5th. So well done to them. 11th is Germany, 12th is the Netherlands, 13 is Guangxi, 14 is the Indigo Arabian country, 15 is France, 16 is Hungary, 17 is the Indo-Chinese country, 18 is Egypt, 19 is Euralia, but written terribly, and 20th is Italy. And 21st, if you're wondering, is Savoy, which is this bluish country. I've been calling them Southern France for so long, and I just remembered, Savoy's kind of where they are. Anyway, let's start off the war, because, it's been 2 minutes. Let's get on with the war. So the Spanish, I also got a naval layer. That's kind of cool. The Spanish are going to start to invade into the southern French area. Let's turn on the cities, because there's quite a few around here. The Spanish will also push around and take over the French coast, and they have this strategic area just north of the Pyrenees Mountains, which kind of go across here, whilst the French have this bit just south of the Pyrenees, but they're not really defending any of this stuff south of here. So the Spanish take the city very quickly. They had a few days, like maybe a week or so, to convene and think about, do we go to war? So the French were kind of prepared. But the Spanish moved north of the Pyrenees around here. The southern French, oh my god, Savoy country, let's get it right for once. They're going to push out of their eastern area, but these French defences around here are pretty good, so they kind of just move back towards the south where the Spanish are. Protect me, Spain, please. So there's them. Naval wars down there, not really much happening. We can go up north where the navy will be much more important because it's here in the British Isles. So here's a naval map, first of all. There's only like 5 fronts in this war on land, because Western Europe has a load of extra countries in it, but you can see the navies and where everyone's got them. So the Spanish have an awful lot of navy. Other fronts are the ones in America. There's only 2 actual land borders in Europe, which is interesting so far. There's going to be more. I'm going to tell you that. There's going to be more. But yeah, there's definitely some fighting that could happen over here in America. We'll get to that in a second. Because first off, what I wanted to do is go to the Azores. It's do the naval wars around here in the British Isles, because the Dutch, they're not really defending their own home territory, because what is there to defend? Who's going to be attacking the Dutch? Nobody. So what they do is they send their navy out here with the British North Sea Navy, and they're going to push around the Irish Scotland colony, and they do pretty well doing that, because the Irish just aren't as strong as the Dutch and the English combined. So they managed to push all the way up to the Shetland Islands, which is pretty good. And from here, the British start their main idea, which is to push the Irish out of Scotland and just the island of Britain. So this is going to be kind of a tricky thing to do, because the Irish are pretty well entrenched and Scotland is a huge mountain. But they're going to do pretty well, pushing around here and taking kind of Edinburgh, kind of Glasgow, somewhere around there. Well, it's kind of like in this general area. And they also push along the eastern area of Scotland, of course, going up into the Aberdeen sort of territory, Inverness, that's over here. Also landing here in Ross, in the north. They take over the Orkney and Shetland Islands in some small naval invasions, because there's only like a few random Scottish people who live up there. And they start to move down this river over here, but the Irish will defend. Lots of mountains in this territory. There's also going to be naval fighting down here in the Irish Sea as the as the British forces, well, English, they're not British yet, push around to the Isle of Man, taking over that island. And of course they have a small, well, not a small skirmish because it's kind of tricky to land here. The Irish have turned the Isle of Man into a fortress, which is interesting. It's not a tax haven in this world, it's a fortress. So that's cool, but yeah, it's definitely going a lot better there than it is in France, at least for the, oh yeah, you're a triangle, aren't you? I always forget the shapes. Yeah, it's parallelogram versus triangle, so you can see all the alliance members, they're just the ones with naval stuff, because they haven't done it for anyone else. Because that would take forever and be stupid and confusing. We can also hop over here to America, where we can see the Dutch are starting to invade the Irish colony. The Irish have a terrible position. It's really bad. They're so unlucky in this war. But the Dutch start an invasion here in the south into just the Texan part of the Irish colony, pushing out towards this major city, whilst they also do a few maneuvers out here in the more plainsy sort of territory, where not that many people live, but there's apparently some of the big lakes over here, so that's cool. The capital of the Irish colony is around here in Louisiana. It's this city over here, which is why there's some naval ships around there. Most of the Irish navies either protecting the Caribbean colonies, like the Bahamas, and just providing a general wall so the British can't invade into Florida, or just defending their home territory. Speaking of the British, though, they're also invading here in the north. Wait a minute. I need to remember something. Because they actually already have an invasion colour, so I want to keep that consistent throughout the colonies and things like that. The British, English, move down and take some of these northern Georgia, Carolina, I don't know, territories. I think this is Georgia they're getting into now, pushing into the Florida areas, which are some of the oldest areas of colonized America. But, not the most important ones to this Irish colony because they're kind of concentrated around the Gulf of Mexico area and also Louisiana. They start to push out in the north a little bit, but it's kind of tricky around here. Invading this huge colony over here would be tricky because there's the Appalachian Mountains, so it's kind of a hard place to invade. Going back to the navies in this area, well, actually we can go to the Spanish first, because the Spanish are of course sending their forces into the Dutch territory to try to push out the Dutch, obviously. I don't know if you can really see that. That changed absolutely nothing. But then they're going to try and push the Dutch out of Mexico. This is a good thing for them. It's good that they have an actual land border. Apparently I can't talk. And they push pretty far into Mexican and also like Guatemalan areas. They also do some naval fighting, but pushing out here is very tricky because it's just highly concentrated, as in the Dutch Navy is highly concentrated. But around here in the Pacific, there's not a whole load of people. So that's good. Speaking of the Dutch Navy, though, what they're going to be doing is pushing back the Irish around Cuba, as they're going to try to make a naval landing in Cuba. But unfortunately, these Spanish navies are going to stop them from doing that, and also just defenses that are there. So that's pretty good. The English Navy is going to push back the Irish around here in Georgia. There's not that many Spanish ships up here because they don't really care. So that's a shame. Whilst the English will also continue down the Irish coast, moving into actual Florida territory and just defending one of the major cities up here in the north as they try to cement this area. But the Spanish will finally send some forces. I mean, I'm saying the Spanish send forces. The Irish can definitely defend this by themselves. They're like the 9th strongest country. So they should be fine. It's just the English are now 5th, so that's scary. Back on over to France. The Spanish have managed to get their forces to go north of the Pyrenees, and they're beginning a full border invasion into France. France is setting up a defense. There's some mountains around here, and there's a huge river right here. Now, it kind of trends in this direction, south. However, I don't care. So what happens is, well, there's definitely some rivers that go out, I think it's the Mastiff Mountains, or just the general Alps over here. So they're going to try and set up a defensive run there as the Spanish approach what would be the city of Bordeaux, and also take this city. I don't know what that one would be, its equivalent. But yeah, they get around to the defensive lines of the French, which are very well defended actually, because they're the defensive lines. And they've been set up for a very long time, since before the French joined the Triangle Alliance. The Southern French, or Savoy country, also hit into this, and yeah, they're kind of stuck at that point. They can't manage to take this city, but the French aren't invading into any of their territory, so it's a stalemate, really. Also, the Spanish are gonna push them out of here. They did that at the start of the war. Continuing up here into Scotland, we can see English forces are doing very well, pushing the Irish out of Scotland, getting towards the western coast of Scotland. But even if they take Scotland, it's not like Ireland's going to be really out, because this doesn't bring a huge load to their economy. It's not their main area of investment. And also, they have to land on the island of Ireland, which is incredibly tricky to make a landing on, because it's a huge swamp. And they have drained it a bit with ditches and stuff, but it's still a big swamp. So that's going to be very tricky. Pushing on to the Faroe Islands is like another side quest the British are going to go down, and the Dutch. So they push around this northern area and take the Faroe Islands just in case. Well, the Irish do have people stationed up here, so that's kind of why. But they're not really successful in getting around to the... what's this area called? Arran. That's the island that's over there. Not really successful getting around to this area, but, they have the coast over here. So that's fine. And they're also going to try and push up further towards the Munster area of Ireland, which is just this bit. Cool. There's the current war with Ireland, and we can go back down to France, and nothing's changed. So these guys are getting bored, and what they're going to do is take advantage of something pretty interesting, and we're just going to go to northern Italy for no reason really. Just drawing a quick bit of navy for them. There's Elba. I don't know why we're doing that. It's because the Northern Italian country in the last episode signed a defensive pact with the Triangle Alliance. So at this point in the war, what we see happening is, well, the French and the Italians begin an invasion into northern Italy, and they cannot defend. They're stuck in a stalemate in the west, and the Italians don't really know what to do, so they decide this is a great opportunity to go after their northern neighbour. So they're going to do that. Poor old Italians, this is not going well, and their military, although it's, they've made their military better over the past few years, it's still terrible compared to these guys. And you're not a top 20 power, are you? No. Therefore, you're not going to do very well here. Also, I should probably make do with these. So we're just going to throw that up here. Don't worry about that. Anyway, the southern Italians will move into the rest of northern Italian territory. I know I went through that pretty quickly, but, it happened kind of quickly. Not as quickly as I did it just now, but, that was pretty fast. Let's take a bit of a jump forward over here in Britain, because I could go on about fighting in Scotland for a long time. So, let's just get the Irish out of Scotland. The British will finally, after a lot of fighting, become Britain, and, they take full control over the island of Britain. There's a huge sort of fighting that goes on up here near Stornoway. What are these islands called? I don't remember. Hebrides, there we go. The Hebrides Islands. That's cool, and they managed to secure naval dominance around the areas of Scotland and the waters around here. These fights up here are very tricky because the Irish have once again fortified a load of different Scottish islands because there's tons of them. And they start to move down into this area, but this is a major victory because it's the first kind of important area that's really been wiped out throughout this entire war. So that's good. They also take over the Faroe Islands. They did that a while ago. We can also move on back over here to America, where more bad things are happening to the Irish, as the British try to move down into this... Is this Alabama? I don't know. I don't know this area well enough. Because the states is like Louisiana, Alabama's here, Florida's here, some other stuff around there, I don't know. But they start to connect up with here. They want to try and connect, or disconnect, Florida from the rest of their territory, but that's not going great. As for the Dutch, things aren't going well for them either. Most of the Mexican population lives in the mountains, or near the mountains, which is the central part of the country, which I kind of forgot about when I drew the major cities. But, people live there, because it's, like, the coast isn't a good place to live. That's what I remember, but I don't remember why. Anyway, they also need to now push up into the rainforests of the Yucatan Peninsula, which they very much struggle in, but they do manage to push back the Dutch Navy in some of these areas, so that's good. In fact, pushing all of the Dutch Pacific Navy back, and also pushing around here near Guatemala and Belize. So that's nice, but the Dutch kind of just move their navy further up north to go fight against the Irish-Cuban territory as they move out just into this German territory. And what they finally managed to do is, let's just get that back again. Also up here in Texas, things are going badly for the Irish as they lose a lot of this western territory. Now it's kind of hard to consolidate control over these plains because there's not anything here. Well, they're kind of getting towards it. The Irish are slowly growing those territories, but they also managed to make a landing here in Cuba where there's not a whole lot going on. There's a few cities. The capital's probably like this city. But the Irish are with like less naval stuff defending Scotland. They're going to send out some more of their navy to go defend Cuba because it's kind of important to them. They have their colonies, so that's good. And it also means they're going to be able to defend up here in the north against the English a bit better. So with an influx of troops who are defending Scotland and also naval stuff, they managed to push back a little bit around here and also stop the force that was going to separate off Florida. Although it doesn't really matter, you can still sail around there. But here is the current front line in the war. But we need to go back here to Europe because something major just happened. And yeah, that was the joining of Sweden. Sweden just joined the war. And this is going to change up a whole load of stuff. Sweden is, of course, the fourth most powerful country in the entire world. Their navy is massive. It's like their biggest industry, being a naval superpower. And they just send out their navy pretty much everywhere they can. So they have people defending the northern part of Norway and Sweden. They also got naval stuff around here near Iceland. Don't send anything out there. Southern Greenland has a very small bit. And they also send naval stuff up here to defend their colony in Canada. So yeah, that's bad. They don't really send anything into this area because they don't have really short range things. Or they're all in the Baltic anyway. So here's the new navy as the Swedish just joined this war. And that's going to screw up a load of things for the British. Because Sweden's going to move its navy. Oh, I didn't see which side they joined. That's a good point. Yeah, obviously they're going to join the Spanish side as they want to get stuff from the English, who, have this territory, and they generally just want to get stuff. They want to follow the Danes. The Danes colonized England and the British Isles, and that's what they want to do themselves. So what we see happening in the early stages of the Swedish joining the war is bad things, as they managed to bad things if you're British. But yeah, they do a lot of stuff, taking over the Shetland and also Faroe Islands, which of course I think those are both territories the Danish owned, so they kind of want those. But it's actually Irish stuff, so they're not really allowed to have that. They also push in towards the Orkney Islands, but the North Sea defences they're pretty good, They're alright. So they do manage to hold on to the rest of Scotland, whilst Ireland is technically getting these territories back, but they're currently being occupied by the Swedes, so that's interesting. The Swedish also now can fight up against the Dutch. The Dutch are going to recall a load of their ships, which is why the English got pushed back so badly there, because, Denmark's not very far away from the Netherlands, and the Swedish gain naval superiority here in, Frisia, or Lower Saxony, whatever this area is called. So that's not good at all. Anyway, back over to France. It's been a while, probably like a year at least, and the Spanish have finally taken over the area near Bordeaux, pushing up around into this territory, but not quite taking the city, which is fortunate if you're French. The Spanish will also manage to push their navy out further into the Bay of Biscay. Okay, thank you. As they push up towards the French coast. However, the French have a very concentrated navy with no colonies to worry about, so they also move their navy into this territory and have a few small victories against the Spanish, because the Spanish are defending their stuff in America. So that's why we can also see finally with Italian, kind of people who are forced from northern Italy as well, along with Italian, Savoy, and whatever troops, they will finally push into France a bit further up here in the north, taking this major city. Again, they took it at the start of the war and then lost it very quickly, but they managed to push into the mountains a little bit and move towards two of these major cities here in France. So, things are going badly if you're French. The Spanish also take this city, finally. But they don't really hold naval superiority over the Basque region and the areas surrounding that, like Aquitaine. So that's interesting. They also push up towards this major city but don't take that, and now they're approaching kind of the outer regions of the French capital area, so that's very bad. Up here to Sweden then, the Swedish will be pushing back against the British and English and Dutch over here in Scotland, getting up close to this northern highland area of Scotland, taking back some of these islands, as the Irish also send their navy out, I don't know what the word would be, re-imbued with just a willingness to fight. The Irish start to, do more stuff. So that's good. They're coming back a bit, and yeah, they gain naval superiority over this part of Scotland. We also can finally go back over to this layer, because the Irish are going to be returning to these islands, the Orkney Islands, and also a bit into Scotland. So this is bad, as they take over a few major cities, and yeah, this is not good if you're English. As for the Dutch, they're currently trying to fight off the Swedes. Not doing great. They're not doing excellent. But, it is how it is. We get kind of close to where the Dutch, like Utrecht, that's up here. And also the capital is kind of close to that. This video is already 20 minutes long. How did it go that fast? I do not know. We can head up over to the Great Lakes, where, as I said before, the Swedes don't have a whole load of defences. So what the English do is send out their naval ships into the Great Lakes, and they start an invasion into the Swedish colony over here in Canada. So that's interesting. They push out here in the south, and the Swedes, they were prepared for an invasion, but they weren't prepared for how much of an invasion there is. The English colony is by far the most populated colony in Spain. In America, apart from the Spanish colony, which is filled with people. But yeah, this is kind of bad if you're Swedish. So that happens, and yeah, they're going to start to move towards these central areas of this colony. The Swedish do start to set up some defenses because it's cold, and yeah, they do that. I'm going to nearly end this video in a second, but I've got a few more things I'd like to do. Such as having the Dutch push out here towards Louisiana and the capital of the Irish colony as they assume naval superiority over the Louisiana Peninsula. They get very close to the capital of this colony. We can also enlarge this brush as they just take over some more central territory. The Dutch may be losing around in Europe, kind of, and things may be bad there. However, the Americas is an entirely different front, and they probably aren't even aware what's going on in Europe. So that's interesting. They're also fighting over here in Cuba, of course, and they do pretty well at fighting there. They're going to send their navy up towards Florida, which is an area that's basically just collapsing at this point because those new Irish troops are being sent back to fight in Scotland. So what we see happening is the English just pushing down the western coast of Florida as they assume a whole lot of naval power in this area, moving into the Bahamas now and getting close to the Dutch naval areas. They're not going to be quite as successful in terms of just like ground navy, but they do very well. They're not really adept at fighting the Florida Everglades, but they do all right, so that's good. And we can go back to the Dutch for a wee second because they've pushed around to the southern areas of Florida, and the Irish colony is now entirely trapped and surrounded by this stuff. So what we see happening following that in the war is the Dutch take the Irish capital city for their colony, and we can see this colony surrender over to the Dutch and the English. And yeah, that's a pretty bad thing. The Bahamas is kind of its own separate colony, but it's still not going great there, and Cuba is also its own separate thing. As for the Spanish, we should take a quick detour over here. They've managed to push around basically to the Gulf of Mexico coast here in the Dutch country. They're also pushing into the Yucatan Peninsula pretty well, but not on the coast. They're just fighting the rainforest at the moment, so that's bad. For the Spanish will also move up here fighting the French as the border here really starts to move. As the French start to retreat, they are kind of near surrendering actually, which is a strange thing for the French to do. Don't know. I think France has surrendered before. The Savoy country will also move into some of these eastern areas near kind of Alsace, maybe not quite. But yeah, they start to get close to the CBD of the entire French country. Central Business District of France, and the Swedes have a whole lot of success fighting up here in Scotland, but they're not quite winning. We can also head over to the Irish Sea because the Swedes haven't sent their navy here, and you know who has? The English. As they press up against the Irish coast around here, they gain naval superiority over the Irish and Celtic seas, as most of the Irish navies just push back in these areas, but it doesn't mean they can start like an actual landing. That's going to be kind of tricky. So there's that, and we just need to do one final thing for this video, which is have Poland join the war. So, yeah, but you didn't see that one coming. The Polish country, who is about 8th in the world in terms of power, will be joining the war, sending out their navy into the Baltic Sea to hopefully fight up against the Finnish navy, Swedish navy. There we go. They'll send it, of course, into the Gulf of Riga around here. And yeah, that is where we're going to leave it for today's episode. The next episode is going to be even crazier, so keep posted for that. But yeah, that is today's episode. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.